Aphex Twin here on Democracy Now!, democracynow.org, The War and Peace Report. I'm Amy Goodman as we look at a stunning new lawsuit filed by a former Fox News contributor, which accuses the network, Fox, of working with the White House to peddle fake news about the murder of Seth Rich. Seth Rich was an aide at the Democratic National Committee who was fatally shot in Washington, D.C. 1 year ago. In May of this year, Fox News published an explosive piece online headlined, "D.C. Murder Mystery, Slain DNC Staffer Was WikiLeaks Source, Say Investigators." The article claimed that Rich, not the Russians, provided WikiLeaks with internal emails from the DNC. But within weeks, Fox retracted the story. Now the only person quoted in the piece, Fox contributor and retired D.C. police officer Rod Wheeler, is claiming Fox knowingly used made-up quotes from him. And that's not all. The lawsuit also alleges direct White House involvement in the story. In the lawsuit, the former police detective Wheeler claims he was used as a pawn in a plan by the White House to, quote, shift the blame from Russia and help put to bed speculation that President Trump colluded with Russia in an attempt to influence the outcome of the presidential election, unquote. At the time, Wheeler was being paid to investigate the Rich killing by a Trump donor in Texas named Ed Butowsky. The lawsuit also claims Wheeler received a text message from Butowsky saying, quote, not to add any more pressure, but the president just read the article. He wants the article out immediately, unquote. Well, on Tuesday, White House Press Secretary Sarah Huckabee Sanders was questioned about the lawsuit.
There's a report out today based on a lawsuit that was filed that says that Sean Spicer met with a campaign donor and a journalist from Fox News where they were pushing around this story that Seth Rich, this low-ranking DNC staffer who was murdered, was perhaps the one responsible for the WikiLeaks breach. Two questions. Sean put out a statement. He said it was just a brief meeting. He said the guy didn't know the president. The lawsuit alleges that the president knew about it and had an influence on the story. Did the president know about the story pre-publication, and did he have an influence on the way the story was written?
The president had no knowledge of the story, and it's completely untrue that he or the White House involvement in the story. And beyond that, this is ongoing litigation, and I'd refer you to the actual parties involved, which aren't the White House.
Does it disturb you that the press secretary for the President of the United States, who just gave this incredibly passionate pushback on us for focusing on Russia, does it disturb you? You just sped right past this. Does it disturb you that there's an allegation out there in a lawsuit, and Sean Spicer admitted meeting with these two individuals, that this was discussed in your White House? That this
he met with members of the media. I don't find that to be a strange thing. You guys were all members of the media.
He was pushing a story that was later retracted because it was false. He met with that reporter, and he met with a campaign donor. Does it disturb you? Does it say anything about this White House that you would entertain that kind of story?
It doesn't bother me that the press secretary would take a meeting with somebody involved in the media about a story.
That's still with us is Marcy Wheeler, who runs the website emptywheel.net, no relation to Rod Wheeler, who brought the lawsuit against his former network, Fox. Marcy, explain, lay this very tangled web out.
What's important about the White House involvement is that when the story first came out in May, Sean Spicer was asked, did you have any involvement in this? And he denied it very aggressively to NBC. And then yesterday, he was quoted as confirming that he was involved prior to the actual release of the story. So all of a sudden, now that Spicer is losing his job at the White House, his story has changed.
Well, wait. Let me play what Sean Spicer said, then the White House press secretary, in May about the Seth Rich story.
Sean, can we get a White House reaction or the president's reaction to the report that Seth Rich was emailing WikiLeaks before his murder?
I'm not aware of. I generally, I don't get updates on former DNC staffers. I'm not aware of that.
It would certainly have a great influence on where the leaks came from. If they could potentially, I mean, there's a lot of implications in the story, of course, but...
I understand that, but for me to comment from here about an ongoing investigation, I believe it's still ongoing. I don't even know the status of it in terms of D.C., but it would be highly inappropriate to do that.
So that was Sean Spicer in May. In fact, he had a meeting in April with Butowsky and with Wheeler, right, Marcy?
Right, and so all of a sudden, his story has changed, and that is, I think, one of the most important parts of the lawsuit. I mean, it's important for people to remember that a lawsuit is just a lawsuit, and you can make any kinds of claims in that you want. Although Wheeler claims to have documentation of Butowsky, who is the donor, of the Fox journalist involved, both of them admitting that they effectively attributed these quotes to him when they weren't his quotes. He claims to have his own quotes that he gave to the journalists, which were scrapped in favor of these ones, which basically said that the DNC or DC government had thwarted the investigation into Seth Rich's murder, and also said that Rich's computer had evidence that he was in communication with WikiLeaks. So those are the two invented quotes. That's what the gist of the lawsuit is about. Wheeler said, you invented these quotes, you attributed them to me, even after retracting the story. You have not retracted the association between me and those quotes. And so what he's asking for is compensation for having been defamed by Fox News, because those quotations, which have been discredited, are still there in his name, and he never said them.
And talk about that text that Rod Wheeler, the former police detective, got from Butowsky, if this is true, the donor, the longtime Trump supporter and donor, that said the president has read this and he wants this to be published.
Right, and the idea is, and again, this is a really well-written lawsuit to capture the attention of the press. At the very beginning of the lawsuit, they start with this text. The idea is that these quotations, which were not Wheeler's, he claims, these quotations ended up in the story attributed to him because the president wanted them there, because the president wanted to push back. And again, the lawsuit makes it very clear. This story came out in the wake of the Jim Comey firing. So the story gets started back in February. It's kind of churning along all along the way. Jim Comey gets fired, and within days, Fox News presents this story trying to create an entirely different narrative about Russia's involvement and Seth Rich's involvement in the leaked emails to WikiLeaks. And so it's a response, allegedly, to the Jim Comey firing. It is an attempt to present an alternative story. Again, it's another lie that came from at least the White House, or at least the involvement of the White House, about the role of Russia in getting Trump elected. And Butowsky, at least, this is the donor from Texas, Butowsky, at least in his texts, he's now claiming he was joking, but at least in his texts, he said that the president had already seen the story and was pushing to get the story on the air on Fox News. So if Butowsky's texts are right, and I suspect he may one day be put under oath by somebody like Robert Mueller, if those texts are right, then it's another incident where Donald Trump personally involved in trying to rebut this, the intelligence community's findings about Russia involvement in getting him elected.